You know that feeling when you look up from your desk and realize you've just coasted through the last few hours without really being present for any of it? It's a common kind of exhaustion, but the way out might be simpler than you think. Today, we're going to explore how to stop living on autopilot during your workday by gently bringing your attention back to the moment, one small pause at a time. This matters because when you're on autopilot, you miss the small signals your mind and body send you, and your day starts to feel like a blur. Consistently practicing these short pauses can help you feel more in control, less drained, and surprisingly more engaged with the work you're already doing. The key shift here is that fighting autopilot isn't about constant focus, but about noticing when you've drifted and kindly returning. In this video, I'll walk you through a simple, step-by-step process you can weave into your existing routine, no extra time required. So let's start with the first step, setting a very small, easy anchor that will remind you to check in with yourself. You know that feeling when you arrive at work, blink, and suddenly it's time to leave, and you're not sure what happened in between. That's what living on autopilot means during your workday, going through the motions without really being present. It's when your hands type emails, attend meetings, and check boxes, but your mind is somewhere else entirely. For example, you might finish a task but have no memory of doing it, like driving a familiar route and realizing you don't remember the last 5 miles. A lot of people think this is just normal busyness, but it's actually a sign that you're disconnected from your own experience. The relief here is that recognizing this feeling is the first clue that you're ready to wake up. Simply noticing when you've zoned out is a small but powerful step toward coming back to the present. This is the starting point, and next we'll explore why it matters so much for your well-being. When you're on autopilot all day, you're not just missing out on productivity, you're missing out on your own life. Your well-being takes a hit because you're not engaging with your work in a way that feels meaningful or connected. Think of it like this. Every moment you spend on autopilot is a moment you don't actually get to experience. Over time, this can leave you feeling drained, numb, or like your days are blurring together without any real satisfaction. The common misunderstanding is that autopilot saves energy, but in reality, it often leaves you more tired because you're not fully alive to what you're doing. The benefit of waking up is that you start to feel more present, and even ordinary tasks can become less draining. When you're engaged, you're more likely to feel a sense of accomplishment and calm. That's the real payoff. And next we'll look at what your workday looks like when this presence is missing. Without intentional presence, your workday can feel like a long gray blur where 1 hour blends into the next. You might find yourself endlessly scrolling through emails or clicking through tasks without any real sense of purpose. It's common to feel a low-grade frustration or boredom, like you're just waiting for the day to end. For instance, you could be in a meeting nodding along, but your mind is replaying last night's argument or planning the weekend. The pitfall here is that this autopilot state can become a habit, making you feel like you're not really in control of your own day. The insight is that this lack of presence doesn't just affect your work, it seeps into how you feel about yourself and your life. You might start to wonder if there's something wrong with your job, when really the issue is how disconnected you've become. Seeing this pattern clearly leads us to the habits and beliefs that keep you stuck in that autopilot mode. As you go about the rest of your workday, maybe notice one moment when you feel yourself drifting. What small thing could help you come back to the present? I'd love to hear what works for you, so feel free to share in the comments below. If this topic resonated, please give the video a like to help others find it too. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing so you don't miss future videos like this. Staying tuned for the next part of the video will give you even more practical ideas. Your small steps really do add up over time. Thanks for being here and for being curious about how you spend your day. One of the biggest habits that keeps you on autopilot is multitasking because it tricks your brain into thinking you're being efficient. When you jump between tasks without finishing, you never fully engage with any of them, and that shallow attention becomes a pattern. Another common belief is that you have to be busy all the time to be valuable, so you rush through everything without pausing to breathe. For example, you might check your phone during a slow moment instead of looking around and noticing where you are. The reality is that these habits feel productive in the moment but actually keep you scattered and disconnected. The relief is that you don't need to break all these habits at once, just noticing one is enough to start. A simple takeaway is to pay attention to when you feel the urge to switch tasks or fill silence with distraction. That awareness is the bridge to the first mindset shift, which we'll cover next. The first mindset shift is to stop seeing presence as something you have to earn or achieve, and instead see it as a choice you can make right now. This matters because most people think being present is a skill you develop over time, but it's actually a decision you can make in each moment. In simple terms, you don't need to wait for the perfect conditions or a quiet moment to start being present. For example, you can choose to take one breath and look at your screen with full attention even if you're in the middle of a busy morning. A common misunderstanding is that you need to clear your mind completely, but presence is just about gently guiding your attention back to what's in front of you. The benefit here is freedom. You're no longer a victim of autopilot because you know you have a choice. Once you adopt this mindset, the next step is to put it into practice with a simple action. That leads us to the first practical step you can take to begin changing your workday. The first practical step is to set a single gentle reminder to check in with yourself 2 or 3 times during your workday. This matters because you can't change what you don't notice, and a reminder helps you break the autopilot loop. so pick a simple cue, like when you sit down at your desk after lunch or right before you open an email. When that cue happens, pause for just 3 seconds and ask yourself, where's my attention right now? A realistic truth is that you might forget or skip it, and that's okay. Just start again the next time you remember. The relief is that this tiny pause doesn't take any extra time, but it immediately brings you back into the room. Over the course of a day, these small pauses can add up to a real shift in how you experience your work. And once you've got that habit in place, the next scene will show you how to build on it and stay present for longer stretches. So what does it actually look like when you start living your workday with more intention instead of on autopilot? It's not about becoming some Zen master at your desk or never zoning out again. It's more like you notice the small moments that used to slip by completely unnoticed. For example, you might catch yourself reaching for your phone during a boring task and pause before grabbing it. Or you might feel your shoulders tense up before a meeting and take one slow breath to soften them. These tiny shifts don't feel dramatic, but they add up to a day where you feel more awake and less like a passenger. The real change is that you start recognizing when you've drifted off and gently guide yourself back without judgment. That simple act of noticing is the foundation for everything else we're building here. One of the easiest ways to support this shift is to build a small anchor into your morning routine before work even starts. It doesn't have to be long or complicated, just a moment where you set a clear intention for how you want to feel during the day. You could take 30 seconds after you sit down at your desk to close your eyes and ask yourself what you really need right now. Maybe it's focus, maybe it's patience, maybe it's just a reminder to breathe when things get hectic. The key is to make this a consistent habit so your brain starts associating that moment with waking up from autopilot. Over time, that tiny pause becomes a signal that helps you carry more awareness into the rest of your workday. You don't have to remember it all day long, just that one intentional start can ripple forward. Think of it as setting a gentle alarm for your attention before the noise of the day takes over. If you're looking for more ways to bring intention into your daily routine, I have a suggestion. Over at www.happylifetribe.com, you'll find simple, practical ideas that fit right into a busy schedule. It's a space built for people who want to live with more presence and less rush. You'll get encouragement, support, and calm living inspiration without any pressure. The website is a gentle next step for anyone curious about building a happier, more intentional life. Whether you read one article or browse a few, it's all about small shifts that feel doable. No big promises, just real, grounded guidance from someone who gets it. Feel free to take a look whenever you're ready for a little extra support. A mistake I see a lot is people trying to stay mindful every single second of the workday, which is impossible and exhausting. They think if they slip into autopilot for even 5 minutes, they've failed and need to start over. That kind of all-or-nothing thinking actually makes it harder to build a sustainable practice. The truth is, your brain is designed to go on autopilot sometimes, and that's not a problem. The goal isn't to eliminate autopilot entirely, it's to notice when you're on it and choose to come back when it matters. So if you catch yourself judging yourself for zoning out, just take a breath and let that judgment go. You're not trying to be perfect, you're just trying to be a little more present than you were yesterday. That small shift in expectation makes the whole process feel lighter and more doable. To keep this from feeling like another chore on your to-do list, start with just 1 moment of awareness per hour. Set a gentle timer on your phone or computer to remind you to check in with yourself briefly. When that reminder goes off, don't try to do anything fancy. Just notice where your mind is and take 1 slow breath. That's it. No need to meditate for 5 minutes or journal about your feelings. The realistic truth is that you'll probably forget some of these check-ins, and that's completely okay. The benefit is that even 1 or 2 intentional pauses can break the autopilot cycle and give you a sense of control. Over weeks, those small pauses train your brain to naturally wake up more often without needing the reminder. You're not adding a big new habit. You're just inserting tiny moments of choice into your existing day. As you practice this more, you'll notice your emotional reactions during the workday start to feel less automatic and overwhelming. Instead of snapping at a frustrating email or spiraling into anxiety about a deadline, you'll have a tiny gap between the trigger and your response. That gap is where your freedom lives, and it grows bigger the more you practice coming back to the present moment. You might find yourself feeling less drained at the end of the day because you're not constantly fighting against your own autopilot. There's also a quiet sense of relief that comes from realizing you don't have to be carried along by every thought or impulse. Your mind becomes a little quieter, not because you've silenced it, but because you've stopped giving every distraction your full attention. This emotional shift makes the workday feel less like a battle and more like a series of manageable moments, and that change alone can make you want to keep going with this practice. When your schedule gets packed and stress spikes, it's easy to drop this practice entirely and fall back into full autopilot mode. The key to keeping momentum is to shrink the practice down to something so small you can't say no to it. On your busiest days, just commit to 1 single conscious breath before you open your email or start a meeting. That 1 breath is enough to remind your brain that you're still choosing to be present, even when everything feels chaotic. You might also pair this with something you already do, like taking a sip of water or standing up to stretch. The more you link your awareness practice to existing habits, the less you have to rely on willpower to remember it. And if you miss a day or a week, just start again without guilt, because the practice is always available to you. Now that we've covered how to keep it going through the rough patches, let's look at how this all comes together in the long run. Over time, this practice of staying present during your workday starts to reshape how you experience everything. It matters because the small moments you used to rush through become the foundation of a calmer, more focused life. Instead of feeling like you are just surviving until the weekend, you begin to find real satisfaction in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. You might notice that you remember more of what you actually did at work because you were there for it instead of drifting off. A realistic truth is that this change does not happen overnight, but each day you practice builds on the last one. The benefit is that your work starts to feel less like a burden and more like something you chose to engage with. A simple takeaway is to trust that even small moments of awareness add up to a completely different work experience. But even with this progress, you will still face moments where autopilot tries to pull you back in. You're not alone in trying to slow down and truly live your workday instead of just rushing through it. There are others out there who are also learning to pause, breathe, and reset. If you'd like to connect with that kind of community, consider subscribing to the channel. You can also visit www.happylifetribe.com to find a space where we share ideas and encouragement. Together, we can remind each other to come back to the moment. It's a gentle invitation to belong, not a pitch. Your journey matters, and you don't have to figure it all out on your own. I hope you'll join us and keep moving forward at your own pace. One realistic challenge that still shows up is the feeling of being overwhelmed by a sudden wave of tasks or stress. This matters because when pressure hits, your brain naturally wants to shut down and go on autopilot to protect itself. In simple terms, you might find yourself zoning out during a meeting or rushing through emails without really reading them. A practical detail is that this often happens on days when you have back-to-back deadlines or unexpected interruptions. The pitfall here is that you might think you have failed at staying present, but that is not true at all. The helpful insight is that these setbacks are normal and actually part of the learning process. A simple takeaway is to notice when autopilot takes over without judging yourself for it. Once you recognize that slip, you can move into the next scene and learn how to recover from it. When you notice you have slipped back into autopilot, the first step is to pause for just one breath. This matters because recovery does not require a long reset, just a small moment of reconnection. In simple terms, you can gently bring your attention back to what you are doing right now without frustration. A practical detail is to place your hand on your desk or take a slow sip of water to ground yourself physically. A realistic truth is that you might slip several times in a single day, and that is completely okay. The benefit of recovering quickly is that you train your brain to come back to presence more easily over time. A simple takeaway is to treat each slip as a chance to practice, not as a failure. This kind of gentle recovery helps you stay with the practice long enough to see who this approach helps most. This topic helps most anyone who feels drained by their workday and wants to feel more alive during it. It matters because so many people spend years just going through the motions without realizing they can change that. In simple terms, if you have ever finished a workday and felt like you barely lived it, this is for you. A practical detail is that it works especially well for people with repetitive tasks or long hours that make autopilot feel natural. A realistic truth is that it also helps people who are high achievers because presence actually improves focus and decision-making. The insight here is that you do not need to be a meditation expert to benefit from this shift. A simple takeaway is that if you have a job and a desire to feel more engaged, this practice is for you. Now that you know who this helps, let us look at a simple action plan to begin today. To begin today, pick just one moment in your workday where you will intentionally pause and notice what you are doing. This matters because starting small keeps the practice realistic and prevents you from feeling overwhelmed. In simple terms, choose something like the first sip of your morning coffee or the moment you open your email. A practical detail is to set a gentle reminder on your phone or a sticky note on your monitor to prompt that pause. A realistic truth is that you might forget the first few times, and that is part of the process. The benefit of this simple action is that it creates a tiny anchor that brings you back to the present. A simple takeaway is to commit to that one pause for just 3 days and see how it feels. Once you have that anchor in place, you are ready for the final encouragement to keep going. This change is worth practicing because your workday makes up a huge part of your life, and you deserve to actually live it. It matters because staying present does not just make you more productive, it makes you feel more human and connected. In simple terms, you are choosing to be awake for your own life instead of sleepwalking through it. A practical detail is that even one moment of presence each day can slowly shift how you feel about your entire work routine. A realistic truth is that you will not be perfect at this, and that is exactly why it is called a practice. The benefit is that over time you build a new relationship with your work, one based on awareness instead of habit. A simple takeaway is to start today, with one breath, one pause, one moment of being fully here. You have everything you need to begin, and the only thing left is to take that first small step. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope you now feel a little more equipped to catch yourself before the day slips away. Even just one small pause can make a real difference in how you experience your workday. If this video felt helpful to you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Happy Life Tribe. For more gentle encouragement and practical ideas, visit www.happylifetribe.com. There you'll find a space filled with calm living inspiration and mindful lifestyle guidance. I invite you to subscribe, follow along, or simply stop by the website whenever you need a reset. Until next time, I hope your day feels a little more present and a little lighter.